Hello, Keely. Hello, Erin. Thanks for being here today. Okay, it's 12:03, so let's start now. Um, Hello, everyone, and welcome to the University of Washington Communication Leadership Program Info Session. My name is Valeska, and I'm the Outreach and Event Coordinator in our program. For those of you who might not know much about the Communication Leadership Program, or COMLEAD, as we like to call it, it is a graduate program at the University of Washington in Seattle, offering communication degrees in digital media, communication leadership, and communities and networks. During this session, we will talk a bit about our program, especially the communities and networks and communication leadership tracks, and then we'll answer all of the questions that you may have. So today with me, I'm joined by two members of the COMLEAD team, and I let them introduce themselves. Heather, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Heather Workle. I'm the Assistant Director of Academic Services for ComLead. So that means I'm the academic advisor. So I help students with admissions questions all the way through to graduation, making sure they meet all the degree requirements. So I'm happy to answer your questions today.
And I'm Alex Stonehill. I'm the Associate Director. I'm also a former student in the program in the MCCN track. I'll be talking about that a little bit more later. And I'm particularly focused on applied learning opportunities for our students. So some of the community connections and consulting opportunities that we create, as well as inside of classes, bringing in clients for our students to work with in classes.
Thanks, Alex and Heather. And for today's session, we'll start by giving you a brief overview of our program and curriculum. And the second part will answer the questions that you may have. So feel free to type them in the chat box or unmute yourself to ask them directly when the time comes. This session will be recorded and uploaded to the COMLEAD YouTube channel, so you can watch it later. Now I will hand it over to Alex to talk a little bit more about our program and curriculum.
Thank you, Valeska. We're super excited to have you all here today. Thank you so much for your interest. Thank you for saying hi in the chat and letting us know a little bit about why you're here. We're definitely excited to give you an overview and then also answer your questions that you might have come with or new ones that might come up while we're talking. But before that, a little bit of an overview. The Communication Leadership Program has been around for a little over 2 decades now. It started in the year 2000 as a response to some of the changes in the communication field that were happening, even back then in the mid to late 90s, and then the rise of social media, shifts in legacy media, and the way that information was distributed, the rise of then smartphones obviously changed things quite a bit. Of course, these last couple of months, we've been talking about a whole other revolution in new AI tools and the way that that's going to change communication. So one thing that remains a constant for our program is trying to be as responsive as possible and basically preparing our students for whatever is coming next, while also grounding them in the foundations and fundamentals of storytelling and communication. The program has grown significantly over that time. And we now offer 3 degrees. The Master of Communication in Digital Media is the kind of original degree and what this program used to be called. And about 8 years ago now, we added the Master of Communication in Communities and Networks, which we'll be talking about more today. And then a couple of years ago, we added the Master of Communication in Communication Leadership, which is a larger degree that kind of brings together elements of both of the other 2 degrees, as well as some additional elements. So those are the 3 degree offerings, and all of that kind of lives under the umbrella of communication leadership. Certainly being in one degree or the other changes your experience quite a bit, but also you will have a lot of shared experiences regardless of which degree you're in. Our program is very, I would say, community driven, and we're always looking for a strong element of cohesion between the people in all of the different classes, different degrees, and there are some core classes that are currently in common between all of the degrees that you'll be together. So our focus today is on the Master of Communication in Communities and Networks and the Master of Communication in Communication Leadership, those 2 degrees. I'll start by talking a little bit about the MCCN degree. As I said up top, that is the degree that I have myself. It emphasizes building community, growing networks, and crafting organizational identity. Students in the degree take classes like multicultural marketing, human-centered design, communication for advocacy, and storytelling for mission-driven organizations. Those are just a few different examples. So you can see it's like a pretty broad range. And maybe I'll just take a second to talk about my own experience. I came into the program having actually worked and taught in this program in the digital media track for quite a few years, teaching video storytelling and documentary. I had a pretty robust experience in journalism and digital media production, but I wanted to understand more about how the content I created circulated around with different people, right? So rather than focusing just on the creation of the content, thinking about like the flow of that content, where it goes, I wanted to understand more about how communities, how they form and interact online, how communication can bring people together to further community goals. And so that was kind of my orientation, is like, I know how to make these things, and then where do they go? And how can they serve community? How can they help people? What do people want? What is the interchange of information between audiences and content creators? And of course, the further kind of we march forward, the more there's a back and forth between that, and the more everybody is becoming a content creator. So there's certainly a lot to explore there. We have a lot of other alums with the CN degree, the Communities and Networks degree, doing different things. One of our alumni who's profiled on the website, Britt Hoffman, is the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion at Peloton, the stationary bicycle company. They probably call it something other than that, but and then we're currently working on a project with the UW School of Nursing, led by Alex Applenapp, who's the dean at the UW School for Nursing, the dean of marketing. So you can see there are like a lot of different job paths coming out of that degree, some of it working in internal organizational communication, some of it working in DEI related fields, and some people working in marketing. There are quite a few others. So I'll pause there for a second. The other track, the other degree that we want to talk about today is the Master of Communication and Communication Leadership, which offers a broad foundation in communication theory, practice, and methods for particularly for people who are looking to launch a new career in the communication industries. So you don't have to necessarily be at the beginning of your career, but certainly at the beginning of a communication career is a good way to think about that. This is a 2-year program, so the other 2 degrees are 45 credits. The CL degree is 50 credits. And with those additional credits, you're going to increase your range of study with a wide variety of class options from across the 2 degree programs. It also adds internships, professional writing training, and a capstone experience. And the last thing I'll say before I hand it over to Heather, just in terms of timeline, our second application deadline is coming up on March 31st. So the first deadline has passed. We got quite a few applications in the first round, but we are certainly second round. We're going to have fewer spots left than we did in February, but the good news is that we are definitely still eagerly awaiting more MCCN and MCCL applications. So if you're here because you're interested in those degrees, then definitely you're in great shape still. So make sure to use this session to figure out if that track might be right for you. And yeah, with that, I'll hand it over to Heather to talk about some of the program specifics.
Great, thanks, Alex. And I have a couple of things I want to point out on more the administrative side or kind of key information about the degrees. So first, particularly for international students, I wanted to mention that all three of our degrees are designated as STEM degrees through the government system that decides these things. So that means that international students that are on an F1 visa are eligible for 3 years of work authorization after they graduate from our program. So that's a great advantage, having that extension, whereas normally students only get 1 year after they graduate. So our students get 3 years, no matter which degree they're doing. Another thing is that we're what UW considers a fee-based program. So this means that we don't receive state funding and we are only a self-sustaining program. Our student tuition is what drives the program. One of the advantages of that is that we do not have resident and non-resident tuition. So all of our students pay the same tuition rate, regardless if you're a Washington resident or you're from New York or you're from another country around the world. It's all the same. Full-time students in the program, as Alex mentioned, the 2 degrees, the MCDM and MCCN, typically finish in about 5 quarters, where that 45 credits. The MCCL degree is about 2 years if you're full-time, so that one's about 6 quarters. And UW does operate on the quarter systems. If you're not familiar with that, we have 4 quarters per year. So that's how that works out: autumn, winter, spring, and then summer. About a third of our students are attending part-time while working full-time. So it's a program that you can definitely do as a working professional. All of our classes meet in the evenings or on weekends. And for students who do have full-time jobs, that obviously keeps your weekdays free for your job. For full-time students, though, it also keeps those weekdays free for internship opportunities. So you don't have to worry about any work opportunity you get during the program conflicting with your classes. So that's a great advantage to that timing. On the financial side, a lot of our students do have part-time jobs on campus or even within the department. So Valeska, as you mentioned, is our events coordinator. That's one of our student hourly positions. We also have students running our social media, putting together a weekly jobs newsletter, and working on social events for the program, bringing students together with that community. So a lot of different positions within the program. And then we've noticed, especially in recent years, that a lot of departments on campus are looking for help with marketing and communication. So a lot of them have hired our students for that kind of assistance, since that expertise is kind of built into the program with the classes they're taking. Part of that connection is our ComLead consultancy, which Alex can talk about later if anyone has questions about that. That is one of those applied learning opportunities where there are scholarships or funding that goes along with those positions, where you can get experience working with a nonprofit organization on a communication project and get some funding to help with your tuition at the same time. Our program is also eligible for federal financial aid for domestic students. At the graduate level, that's primarily student loans, but you can get that assistance by filling out the FAFSA. And then we have a number of students who are also using GI Bill benefits for the program. So all of those are options. As we mentioned, our next deadline coming up, which is our second and last deadline for autumn 2023, March 31st. So at this point, you've got about 6 weeks until that deadline, plenty of time to put together a thoughtful application. And we are happy to answer your questions about that as you start thinking about applying today, if you're considering. One note on that deadline: you don't want to wait until the deadline to designate your recommenders in the system or order test scores if you're required to submit English test scores, because the test scores can take at least 2 weeks to arrive. Nothing is instant, as much as you might hope it would be. So you want to order those at least by March 15th if you need to submit English test scores, and then designate your recommenders a couple of weeks in advance so they have time to submit by that March 31st deadline, because that is a completion deadline. Everything needs to be in by that date. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Valeska to start our Q&A session.
Yeah, thank you, Alex and Heather, for that great overview. We will now move on to the Q&A part of today's session. Again, if you'd like to ask your questions yourself, you're welcome to unmute and ask them directly. Otherwise, you can send them in the chat and I will ask the questions for you. I'll go in the order that we received them. So yeah, let's begin.
I'll
Um,
jump. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Annie, and I just applied to the communication and digital media. My application says submitted, and it was my understanding that if all the materials were there, it should say like application received. So I'm just wondering, is there a problem with my application, or did it go through still?
I was just looking it up. So I know the application system, the graduate school should really let us, use some of our user experience expert students to fix this up. At the top of your status page, it'll say application status submitted, but if you look right below that, you'll see a line that says application complete. The department has confirmed that it has received all required application materials. So that line means that your application has been checked in, everything's there, and it's been passed on for review. So the first line saying it was submitted doesn't go away. You just have to look a little below that to see that line that says it's complete.
Okay, I'm just not seeing that on my end either.
So you have to click on the status button when you go into the application status page.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, you see that now?
No, but I will.
Yeah, so it'll show, I don't want to like show your application by screen sharing here, but when you go in there, you'll see that all the applications you've created or submitted, and then there's a little link that says status. And if you click that, it'll bring you to a different page that has like a box about your net ID. It has a box about test scores, recommendations, transcripts. So it kind of tracks all of your application materials on that page. And at the very top of that page is where it'll have the line that says application complete.
Okay, great. So on your end, you are seeing that it was
Yes.
complete? Okay,
Yes.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, next question is from Anna. Are there any general UW scholarships to which we can apply to help fund our grad studies?
Want me to answer that, Heather? There.
I'm just bringing up the webpage to link
Okay,
in
that's
there.
what I was doing too. Great. Yeah. So on the tuition, on the tuition page, I think in the drop-down menu, it actually says fees and financing. You'll see a listing of some of those resources, certainly starting with federal assistance, and then there are other benefits that are listed there, other scholarship funds that are listed there. Heather, I don't know, is there a way that you would kind of generalize the sort of amounts or availability of those?
Yeah, I would say a lot of our students, especially domestic students, are using the FAFSA, so federal financial aid, to help with the program. Another resource listed there that's really useful for finding kind of scholarships, especially kind of niche scholarships, is the Graduate Funding Information Service. That's offered by the UW libraries. So I think that's the second kind of box down on that page after the FAFSA information. And that's a clearinghouse where it has everything from positions on campus and so that are open to graduate students to different scholarships, fellowships, and could be the Ford Foundation has one, or American Association of University Women, or like there's all different organizations that give scholarships, and that kind of brings them all together in one place where you can search through that and see what the options might be.
Okay, next one. As someone who's been working for several years, I'm curious to hear a little more about how this program could be impactful for people more established in their careers. I was considering the communication leadership track, though it sounds like that could be geared more towards fundamentals.
Yeah, so let me answer the first part of that first, and then we can talk about the which degree part. So we really value the mid-career students that we have in our program. That historically has been the bread and butter of the program. Honestly, when I started, that was many of the people who are in the program. That landscape has shifted a little bit, but we definitely still are looking to serve those students as best we can. I did a study a few years ago, kind of trying to look at it because I was a mid-career student myself, and interviewed a bunch of the more mid-career students and kind of asked them various different questions about what they got out of it. Certainly, it was a resounding positivity, but they also said some interesting things about the value of being in classrooms with students that didn't have as much work experience, in part because of like the age difference, the way that they were using technology, all of that stuff is very informative, not to mention the different like international perspectives that they were getting. So yeah, I would say that our classroom structure, for instance, my experience was definitely really positive in that most of the courses are run very like, I don't want to know if I want to say democratically, but like very conversationally. And if somebody in the classroom has individual experience that's informing the topic, then they will absolutely sort of be called upon, and that will be valued. Like, we don't have very many classes that are super lecture driven. So whatever field you're working in, if you're taking classes where that becomes relevant, or however the thing that you're studying in the class is kind of reflected in your field or in your work. We've heard a lot of students say, oh, I just applied like every week of this class, I found a new thing that I was applying to my job. So I think it is very valuable for mid-career students as well. I would highly recommend it, having done so myself. In terms of the track, it is true that there are things in the communication leadership track that are sort of specifically, that we put together specifically oriented towards earlier career students, such as internships and the writing requirement, although certainly that is something that probably is sort of career state neutral. And the capstone element of that, the CL degree, is also about helping you sort of create something for your portfolio that's going to help you move, take your next career step. So I would say either early career or changing careers, in both cases, would be served by that degree. And then I'll just say one more thing about the CN degree. I didn't really say this up top, but it's definitely emerging for us that the classes in the CN degree tend to be a little bit smaller. Our director's been calling it a boutique degree. I'm not sure how I feel about that or not, but it definitely is. I could see there are more leadership elements there as well. So I could actually see that degree being one that serves mid-career students really well. And that was certainly my experience too. Does that answer your question, Erin? Any follow-ups you want to ask or anything?
No, that was great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Alex. The next one says, can you talk more about the video for the app? And I can give my experience when I applied. The video, I think it only needs to be 90 seconds, not longer than that. And I think the prompt is about telling a story or a past experience that kind of illustrates your desire to join the program. And what I would recommend is definitely do not repeat the same story or whatever you are talking about on your essay. It can be a story that complements whatever you started talking about on your essay, but definitely not the same, because the idea is for them to get to know you as much as possible. It can be really simple. You don't have to edit it. It's just one take. And I feel like it's really, it's gonna sound cliche, but basically just be yourself, like talk about some, like a real story of why you want to join the program, why you feel like it's the right program for you, maybe what you hope to accomplish with the program. And yeah, that's basically what I did and what my video was about. So yeah, I think it's not complicated, and definitely they just want to get to know you, hear you, see you, and basically see how you express yourself. I don't know if Heather and Alex want to add something else.
Yeah, I would just say, think of it as one question of an interview. If we had time to interview everyone, admissions interview, this would just be one question of that interview. So that's why, we're not worried about editing. Please don't send us a produced video. Most people record it just on their phone, or they open up, Zoom and just record themselves on Zoom, anything like that. And think of it like that, like if we were doing a Zoom interview. So over 500 applications, we can't interview people. So this is kind of replacing that.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. So hopefully that's helpful. Next one is, would you be able to give a brief overview of the ComLead in digital media degree? I have an interest in photojournalism and I'm trying to get a sense of what the track entails. Maybe Alex, do you want to talk a little more about the?
Yeah, a great way to get a better sense of that is to start with the page on the website that has some sample classes and some career directions based on that degree. But really it is, it's more emphasizing, as I was saying up top, content creation, adapting to emergent technologies, proficiency in digital platforms, coming in with an emphasis in, we have a lot of students who come in with like very well-established digital media skills, whether it be video production or photojournalism or design or things like that. So don't think of it as a degree that's teaching you how to do one of those things in particular, certainly not a specific one. We do have classes that dig more into the meat of that, but for the most part, it's like developing a sort of broad proficiency and understanding of how those things work, and more from a sort of strategic perspective. So our DM students are going on to careers certainly in like UX design and user research, also into production careers, but a lot of them are going into marketing careers, and some of the more successful alumni from recent years, if you look at the degree profiles on that page, a lot of them have marketing manager, content manager, things like that in their job titles. I think in part because you're getting a really kind of broad understanding of how online spaces work, how marketing works, and then you're being prepared to either kind of implement one sort of niche element of that, or for people in leadership roles, just like understanding how all of those worlds work and how all of that content is produced, and kind of being able to lead a broad marketing strategy, for instance. Valeska, you're a DM student, right?
Yes.
So what has your orientation been? Or how would you describe your kind of journey through that?
Yeah, definitely more content creation focus, but still having that part of leadership and community building. I'm specializing in content strategy and UX, so most of my classes are UX focused. So we build things, we create experiences on these classes like websites or apps. But then I've also taken some of the like community building and more leadership focused classes, because they are still part of the program, and I feel like they're really helpful also when you're working on creating these content and these experiences as well. So yeah, I think it definitely depends on what your career goals are. For me, I chose the digital media track because I really want, I feel like I'm more of a creator. Like I love designing, and my background is in architecture, so I'm more into the creative content design and that part of the digital communication world. So yeah.
And I would just add that for anyone trying to decide which degree might be the right fit, especially between the MCDM and MCCN, I'm going to put the link in the chat here to our classes page. That is where I usually recommend people start if they're really trying to choose which one, because honestly, like you could get the exact same job title from any of the 3 degrees. It's more about which classes do you want to take. Because the classes, when you see on that page, and you can use the filters to go back and look at past quarters and look at future quarters, you'll see classes are designated either MCDM elective, MCCN elective, or track neutral. So you can, if you're in the MCDM or MCCN, you can only take up to 10 credits outside of your degree. Track neutral classes are considered within all of the degrees. So those apply to anyone. But if you're looking through there and kind of keep track of which classes are really interesting to you, you'll probably see that more will fall in the MCDM or MCCN, and that's the best way to choose which degree to apply to, because that ensures you'll be able to take the classes you want to take.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Heather. So before we move on to Adeline, I have a question on the chat box. Are there gonna be online options for the communities and network classes? I am not sure if we still have like online classes available.
Yes, we do have a few classes. I'd say it's usually about 2 or 3 per quarter that are offered online. UW has really strict rules about whether you can offer an online class. You have to go through this very long approval process to get permission. Now that we're in the post-pandemic rules, obviously things were a little different for a few years there. But we do have, like spring quarter, I think there's actually 5 classes, which is pretty high for a number of online classes, but most quarters it's about 2 or 3. Those are always going to be electives. So the core classes are in person. So you have to be in Seattle to complete the degree, but you do have, you know, a little bit of flexibility to occasionally take an online class.
Got it. Thank you, Heather. Adeline?
Hi, so happy to see you. And actually, I have a question because I'm currently a student in Northeastern University Seattle campus, and I'm learning data analytics. So I was thinking about the part you said you applied for part-time students, right? You mean I can work at the day and go to class at the night. So will there be any difference between the part-time student and the full-time student?
Only difference is the number of classes they're taking. So we don't classify students as a part-time student or a full-time student. They don't have different experiences. It's just a matter of one person might choose to take 1 class per quarter, and one might choose to take 2 or 3 classes per quarter, but the classes they're taking will be the same classes. It's just the number of classes they choose to take.
Okay, thank you so much. And I also have more questions. Since I'm really interested in UX, so I was thinking about, you know, the difference between MCDM or MCCN. So if I'm really interested in the UX, I mean, which track will recommend for MCDM or MCCN?
Yeah, most of the UX classes are categorized under the MCDM track. So that's the one I would recommend. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Or the MCCL, because we do have a number of students interested in UX careers who are doing the MCCL. Yeah.
Okay, okay, gotcha. Thank you so much.
Okay, next one is, are all weekend classes 9 to 5? And in my experience, the ones that I've taken that only meet on the weekends are 9 to 5. Because it's usually every other week. But Heather, are there any?
Yeah, and that is the norm. We've occasionally had, especially like a 3-credit weekend class that might meet half day for, you know, 6 weekend days. But the way the math works out is it's a 10-week quarter. So classes that meet on a weeknight meet 10 times for 4 hours each. So a class that meets on the weekend meets 5 times for 8 hours each is kind of the standard for that, because you're meeting twice as long, half as often for that. Like, so we have occasionally had like a 3-credit weekend class that met 9 to 1 for 4 or 5 days. But I'd say that is kind of the standard schedule.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, that's all we have for now.
Oh, I did want to ask, do students in MCCN or MCDM or MCCL, do they also qualify for graduate housing if we're coming from out of state?
Yes, and it's really nice. Yeah.
I've seen a few of them, yeah.
Yeah, the new grad student housing at UW, I mean, they have some that's been established for a long time. That's mainly like apartment complexes that they own, and that's like grad student and family housing. Those allow partners, children, even some allow pets. But there's some new dorms that just opened up that are grad student only, right along the water near campus. I got to tour them when they first opened, and they were nicer than a lot of apartments I've lived in Seattle. And so, yes, there is grad student only housing. One advantage of that too is that you don't have to worry about being in housing with, 18-year-old first time living away from home freshmen. So like when they're in the grad student housing, it's all other grad students who are actually, kind of, I mean, there's a community and there's fun and there's events, but everyone there is focused on, getting a graduate degree rather than being excited to be living alone for the first time. Yeah.
Letty's asking, what's the average age?
So we don't have the age data numbers crunched, but we do have the years since undergraduate degree. That's kind of what we rely on to gauge those things. I don't know if we even are ever asking people's ages in any of the intake process, but I'm just going to pull this up real quick. So I think this is last year's numbers or the year before's numbers. So 57% of students completed their undergraduate programs in the past 5 years. 23% completed their undergraduate programs between 5 and 9 years, and 20% completed their undergraduate program over 10 years ago. And there are certainly some people who did their undergraduate degree at age 30 or 25 or 55 or something like that. But for the most part, that can kind of give you a sense of the way that it skews. We certainly have a lot of people who are fresh from undergraduate programs, but also quite a few students who are bringing either a couple or many, many years of work experience as well.
Yeah, fun fact, we're actually not allowed to see how old you are in the application. It's blocked out for privacy considerations. And so we can't see how old you are when you're applying to the program, but we can see when your birthday is, so we can wish you happy birthday. It just shows month and day, not year. Yeah.
And I would say like there is definitely there have been in the past sort of informal affinity groups of mid-career students, but I don't see the cohorts being like really kind of like socially or project-wise like divided in that way. Honestly, I have no idea. When I find out how old one of our students are specifically, I'm usually surprised, because we just I would not say it shows up very much in. We're certainly, I think maybe this is partly because of the kind of program it is, and perhaps the way that we're evaluating the applications. I think there's a pretty high maturity level in terms of the way that students are showing up in the program. Typically people who are thinking a lot about interpersonal communication and, really relationally minded people. So yeah, I think everybody does sort of get along and work together across age in ways that are really nice.
I just shared on the chat because someone was asking the start date of fall quarter is September 27th. Everyone in the cohort starts the same day, which is the same day as the full quarter of the UW calendar. And Anne-Marie is asking, what is the acceptance rate?
That will be hard to say this year because we got a record number of applications for our February 1st deadline. We have about 500 applications for that priority round, whereas in past years, we've gotten about 400 total across both rounds of admission. So we're assuming this year it will be a little more competitive. We typically offer admission to close to 200 students, maybe 175 to 200 applicants, in order to try to get a cohort of about 115 to 120 in the end. So that's kind of the goal size for the cohorts. And then competitiveness, again, all depends on how many applications we receive. And we got a lot this year.
For sure. Then is there a spring application? And our second and final application deadline is March 31st. And then everyone starts in September 27th. That's how it works. Then if I'm graduating at UW this June, my application, would it be a transfer application?
So there's no such thing as transfer at the graduate level. When you're applying to a graduate program, you're just always applying as a new applicant to a graduate program. If you were pursuing another graduate degree somewhere and decided to stop that and come to a program at UW, there is a process where you can transfer up to 6 credits that you earned there, as long as they weren't required for a degree that you earned at that school. So like if they're kind of extra graduate credits that you took somewhere, you can transfer that. But all admissions applications are new applications at the graduate level.
Yeah.
Just want to add real quick, we love having students who did their undergrads at UW, whether it's Bothell, Tacoma, or Seattle. There's not the same thing as within academic lines where they don't like you to go to grad school the same place you went to undergrad or anything like that. It's very nice for us to get applications, and we get a lot of applications from UW undergraduate programs.
Yeah, and before we move into Anna, I just wanted to Adeline know, because everyone starts in September. So you can apply until March 31st, and that if you get into the program, everyone starts in September 27th.
Yeah, so I guess the simpler way is we only admit for fall quarter start.
Anna, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So I know I'm applying to the MCCL program, and I wasn't sure if I know it mentions kind of an internship requirement. If we are planning to matriculate into the program and already have a job that we work, weekdays, do we still need the internship requirement, or how does that work?
We have a couple of options for that. So we have had a few students who pursued the MCCL who were mid-career professionals that were already working in the field. And what we did for those students is we allowed them to substitute a class for that internship requirement instead, since they already had that career. I would say though, if you're career switching, so even if you have a full-time job, if you're looking to do something different, then it could be valuable to do some kind of internship experience. And there are ways to do that around your full-time job paying the bills, where you can do kind of more project asynchronous internship where it's evenings, weekends, so you can make that work. But we do have that substitution option for students who really are established professionals and don't need that in the degree.
Yeah, and there's definitely opportunities, I think, as I was referencing earlier, to use the things that you're doing in your job for class projects, for instance, or not, I would say more applied class projects to the problems that you're confronting in your job. I would say for me, when I was a student, probably about half the time when I had most classes will have some sort of project. Often you're looking for like a kind of real world problem or a real world client. And yeah, about half the time I would like apply it to my job here. So like I did in the building successful online communities class, I did like an analysis of our Discord server and the way that people were interacting with it and the way that it could be altered to work a little bit better. And then the other half of the time doing projects that were, maybe where I might want to go in the future, or things that were sort of personally interesting to me.
We've also had a few students have that thing they always wanted to do with their job, but they never had enough time during their regular work hours or responsibilities. Like, it'd be great if we had this. We've had some students do an independent study project to do that. So they're actually, getting something done at their job that they don't have time during their 40 hours a week. And they were able to do an independent study to finally, achieve that project they'd always thought they should do.
Yeah, so we have answered everything for now. Yeah, of course, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. When does 2024 application open?
So UW is switching to a brand new graduate application system for 2024. So right now they're telling us it will probably open in July, but given how implementing a new system works, I'm thinking it'll be more like September when that will be ready. We'll certainly have all the information updated on our website for next year over the summer. But it'll probably be beginning of fall quarter is when you could really think about starting an application. And if you're thinking about applying 2024, one thing I would emphasize is that we don't start application review until after the deadlines. So there is never an advantage to submitting early, other than you just have to wait and be anxious for longer. And you don't want to submit an application in October and then be waiting 5 months to hear a result. And the other thing is that once you've submitted your application, it's locked. You can't change anything about it. And so you definitely don't want to do that too early in case you get a new job or rethink, I wish I would said something different in my personal statement or my video. So we encourage people to wait until at least, within 3 or 4 weeks at the earliest of the deadline to submit your application so that you can get it, in the state that you want it, as polished as possible, and keeping in mind nobody's going to look at it until after that deadline anyway, so there's no reason to submit early.
There's also no harm in applying in 2 consecutive years. So perhaps we've sounded a little discouraging in talking about how many applications we have so far this year. We certainly will still be accepting people from the second deadline, but there will certainly be no knock against anybody who applies this year and, because of the limited number of spots, maybe a pretty strong application we're not able to admit, you would be welcome and encouraged to reapply the following year. Certainly a lot of times we read applications that are kind of like, whoa, this person seems great, but like maybe they're not quite there yet. I hope they apply next year. Even also in the case that not a lot changed, you might have a great application that will be a little bit stronger as compared to the field the following year. So I guess that's to say, don't be discouraged. Also, if you're here and you're listening to this info session, then you're have a leg up on a lot of the other applicants already. So because of your both commitment and the information that you're going to have to make a stronger application. So we definitely want you to apply. I think that the strong test is if you feel like for yourself, you have a strong why you want to pursue a graduate degree in general right now and pursue this one in particular, and what you think this is going to do for you in terms of your life and career and the work that you want to do, write an application that emphasizes that. And that's what's really going to resonate with us above anything else. Our mission is to be able to basically help people advance their careers and make change in the world. So if you can see the way that this program is a pathway for you to do that, then tell us about it, and it will almost certainly be a strong application.
Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear from all 3 of you. But when you're reading a personal statement, or I guess this is more admissions focused, but when you're reading a personal statement, what are the top 3 things that you're looking for in a personal statement? I know obviously being kind of professionally minded, but aside from that, I'm curious.
Yeah, I can try to answer. Definitely some sort of narrative storytelling instincts. So, something that tells a little bit of a story as opposed to kind of like a bullet pointed recounting of achievements. And then other things are like articulation of goals. What do you want to do? And then an understanding of the program and how the program is going to help you to achieve those goals. Those would probably be the top things. And certainly like things that you've done. I mean, we're trying to create very diverse cohorts that inform each other and help each other grow. So the things that you're interested in, or the things that you do at work, the things that are sort of like unique about you, perhaps. Those are all advantages as well. So try to include those things. If you're in some sort of what might feel like a niche relative to our program, that's probably a good thing, not a bad thing. So don't feel like you need to try to be like everybody else is going to be.
And I'd say definitely don't. With that many applications, you want something about it to stand out. You want to be memorable. Oh yeah, that student who did that one internship, or that student who mentioned the story about their grandmother, or like whatever it is that's unique to you, will definitely help you stand out when the admissions committee is reading hundreds of applications.
Just wanted to add that I just shared my email on the chat. So feel free to, you can ask me anything. You can, if you want to visit the UW campus, you're more than welcome to visit it on your own. But if you want to meet, and maybe I can give you a brief tour of the campus and show you around and the communications building, you can send me an email, and I can also advise or answer any questions that you may have about the application, about the program, about my experience, and all of that.
I was going to say, we also have on our website, if you go in our footer, there's a link to book a meeting, and I'll put that link. It's our group Calendly, where if you are going to come to campus and you want to try to meet with any of the staff members, then you can go to that book a meeting link and see who might be available on the day you're considering coming, or see when the person you want to meet with is available and choose your meeting based on that.
Yeah, so other than that, we have, I think, one more student ambassador Q&A session. If you're interested in attending that, I'm gonna share the link. Because I think that one is the last one before our second application deadline. Yeah, it's on March 17. It's our last ComLead Student Ambassador Q&A session, and that one is more, it's a Q&A session, but with students. So it's more if you want to know from their perspective and their experiences, if you want to learn or you want to ask questions, more than welcome to come.
Thank you all for joining us today and for the great questions.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And Letty just share like a last minute question. Do people tend to stay in Seattle after graduating? And I would say, I think it really depends, because some people find jobs like out of the state. So people go back home. Some international students go back home. But a lot of people also find jobs here in Seattle. I guess you already know, but like there are a lot of companies, especially tech companies here in Seattle, and a lot of people find jobs here.
I would say if that's something you want to do, if your goal is to stay in Seattle after graduating, we have a lot of resources set up to help you find a job here. So people choose to do different things, but if that's a goal of yours, then we can help you with that.
So yeah, thank you everyone for being here, and we hope to see you here in September.
Bye, everybody.